In this podcast episode, Steve Stewart-Williams delves into the topic of sex differences between men and women, exploring why these differences are often denied or minimized in society. He begins by framing the discussion through the lens of an alien scientist who would be mystified by human beings' unique characteristics, particularly our cultural evolution. He emphasizes the significant role culture plays in shaping behaviors and beliefs, but also underscores the importance of evolutionary factors in understanding sex differences. Steve argues that while socialization influences behaviors, there is compelling evidence suggesting that sex differences have an evolutionary basis. These differences tend to be stable over time, persisting even when cultures undergo significant changes. For instance, mate preferences and aggression exhibit consistent sex differences across various cultures and historical periods. Steve highlights the early emergence of sex differences, noting that some traits appear before socialization could influence them. He discusses the role of hormones, particularly prenatal exposure to testosterone, in shaping male and female characteristics. He points out the resistance of sex differences to cultural influences, citing examples where efforts to discourage certain behaviors in boys still result in persistent sex differences. One significant sex difference discussed is the desire for sexual novelty, with men generally showing a greater interest in variety compared to women. Another prominent difference is the preference for casual sex, which tends to be more pronounced in men. Steve also touches on the sex difference in jealousy, with men often more upset by sexual infidelity and women more affected by emotional infidelity. Steve addresses the question of why women have concealed ovulation, considering various hypotheses such as environmental security and pair bonding. He also explores the phenomenon of women purposefully starving themselves and developing anorexia, suggesting that it may be more of a cultural byproduct related to status-seeking behavior rather than an adaptive trait. Steve discusses the attempted debunking of the man-the-hunter theory, which posits that men did most of the hunting in hunter-gatherer societies. He argues that the traditional view of men being primary hunters is supported by evidence from various cultures and should not be dismissed. He also discusses the concept of the soft bigotry of male expectations, where certain traits or behaviors associated with males are considered superior, leading to biases in societal norms. The conversation then shifts to gender differences in STEM fields. Steve highlights that while there may be more men in certain STEM disciplines, overall gender representation in STEM is relatively balanced. He suggests that differences in interests between men and women may play a role in career choices and occupational segregation. He also explores the likelihood of humans staying together for life in ancestral times, noting that serial monogamy was more common than lifelong pair bonding. Steve delves into the topic of sexual jealousy and relationship dynamics, discussing how cultural norms and societal expectations can influence perceptions of monogamy and non-monogamous relationships. He mentions that while some individuals may naturally lean towards polyamory or monogamy, societal pressures can impact relationship choices and behaviors. The guest also touches on the stigma surrounding divorce and the historical perspective on marriage longevity. He suggests that cultural norms around divorce can impact individuals' decisions to stay in unhappy relationships, leading to unnecessary suffering. Steve emphasizes the importance of finding a balance between staying together and separating when necessary, especially when children are involved. The podcast continues with a discussion on mating preferences and testicle size in relation to mating systems. Steve explains that the relative size of male testicles can indicate the mating strategies of a species, with larger testicles often associated with promiscuous mating behaviors. He highlights the unique traits and behaviors observed in different species and how they can provide insights into human mating preferences. One of the key concepts discussed is the mutual mate choice model, which suggests that both males and females play a role in mate selection and competition. Steve argues that humans are somewhere between promiscuous chimpanzees and pair-bonding gibbons in terms of their mating behavior. He also touches on the idea of men insulting their intimate partners as a way to maintain control in the relationship. The conversation delves into the idea of agency and free will in the context of evolutionary psychology. Steve explains how understanding our evolutionary predispositions can help us make more informed decisions and potentially overcome certain behaviors or desires. He emphasizes the importance of recognizing that our genetic makeup and environmental factors influence our thoughts and actions. The discussion then shifts to the concept of the crumbling genome theory, proposed by John Tooby. This theory suggests that as selection pressures decrease due to advancements in technology and healthcare, genetic mutations that would have been selected against in the past may accumulate in the population. Steve explores the implications of this theory on issues such as mental health, genetic disorders, and the decline in birth rates. Throughout the podcast, Steve provides a nuanced perspective on the interplay between evolutionary biology and cultural influences in shaping sex differences. He argues for a balanced understanding that acknowledges both the biological underpinnings and the cultural context of human behavior. The conversation offers insights into the complexities of sex differences and challenges the notion that these differences can be entirely attributed to socialization.